Now, before we continue with this, I just want to congratulate you because at this point, and I'll be honest with you here, at this point, you already have gone through what 80% of the Excel users in the world know how to do and use. And I'm not exaggerating. I've been training for years. I've been doing computer work for almost 17 years. And I know people that have been using Excel for years and they still don't know everything that we just went through. Okay, so really, this is a fast track to Excel. We're going through things very quickly. I'm not getting real deep into things, but I'm doing that intentionally because we don't want to spend a whole lot of time at this. We want to get the basics. We want to see how to do the things that we need to do to get up and running really quick because I want you to be able to get that promotion or get, that new job. And if knowing how to use Excel will help you to do that, you want to be able to do it very, very quickly. So here we have got our multiplication table that we created very quickly with a nice little formula. One formula created in the proper fashion with mixed referencing, absolute and relative referencing. That one formula was copied into all these cells and calculates the correct results for us. But this is a little bit tough to see visually. I mean, there's a lot of numbers going on here. It's very difficult to track if you're trying to find out, what is this? What is it? 8 times 6. So you got to go all the way over there. There's some duplication of numbers here because, 1 times 2 is 2, 1 times 4 is 4, etc. So we want to make this a little bit easier on the eyes and a little bit more helpful. And we're going to do that with formatting. Now, we've talked about formatting the text that's inside of a cell, but you can actually format the cell itself and make it look however you want it to. Let's go ahead and start with borders. That's a pretty simple thing to do. And as a demonstration, I will just do one cell. There's a couple of ways we can get to this. We can right-click on the cell and go to Format Cells. Okay, and then we could go over to Border. And this gives you a pretty good visual feedback of what's going to go on. I'll explain all this in just a minute. We'll come back to it. But another way that you can get to it is on the Home tab under Font. There's a little drop down here. This is the way we control the borders. And they have visual representations of what's going on. Notice the little dashed elements or dotted elements. That's the way the cells are being divided. And then there's a solid line. So this is showing you what that's going to do. And you got some text there to kind of describe it too. Top border is going to place a solid line across the top. Now the reason this comes into play is not only on screen, but when you actually print, by default, these grid lines don't print. So by default, what you'll get is, if you print this, you'll get just the numbers without any grids there. And then it'll be really tough to see what's going on. But let's go ahead and select this one again. We'll click the drop down. And we'll go to outside borders. Again, a little graphical representation there and some descriptive text. And you can tell that I get border around the outside. Now, this is the way it works with one single cell. Okay, let's set it back to no border. Now let's do it with multiple cells. And we're going to go ahead and click and drag to select all the cells in our little multiplication table. And now we'll click the drop down. And watch what happens now when I do outside border. And I'll deselect here. It just put a border around the outside of that selection. Okay, no matter how big the selection is. And by the way, whenever you use a formatting option here, the last one you used is what shows up there on the button. So if you want to repeat it, you don't have to click the drop down and go through all that. You could just click on the button. Okay, so again, whatever the selection was, that's how this gets applied. So let's undo both of those. Control Z twice, and we'll reselect this. And let's go to this option right here, all borders. And that's going to place solid lines everywhere, just like it is a graph. Okay, let's go ahead and undo that. What I want to show you with this other method is that you get a little bit more flexibility besides just the drop-down stuff that you're seeing here. So let's right-click on it, and you can go to Format Cells. Let's move this in here a little bit. Now, what you're getting at this point is a very small representation of the cells, but you're talking about, it's trying to describe the interaction of the cells with one another. So in other words, there are some areas that I can put borders here. And then since I've got multiple columns and multiple rows, it's kind of showing me the relationship. And here's how it works. You pick the line style that you want to use. So I'll select this line right here. And then you click where you want that line to appear. Okay, very simple. Also, if you want, instead of clicking inside the preview area, you can click the little button and it kind of gives you a little visual representation of what that'll give you. Okay, so I'm saying basically on the left side of the cell I want a line, and in the middle of cells I want a line. So when I click, let's go ahead and do this one too, middle. And when I click OK, let's see what we got. Okay, notice we got the left side of the cells have a line. The left side of each cell has a line. And you can't tell any difference until you get all the way over here to the right. The left side of this cell has a line, but the right side doesn't. Now, same thing happened in the other direction. I put a line right through the middle. So the middle of these 4 cells has a line going through it, but there is no line on the top, and there's no line on the bottom. So just the lines in the middle. So let's go ahead and undo that, and let's get a little bit trickier now with the formatting. Let's say I want to have a bolder border around the outside edge. I can very, very quickly use a preset here and click Outline. That'll give me a border around the outside edge, and that's here where you see it in the preview. And now I need to control what I want to happen in the middle. And so we'll pick this thin solid line, and I want to go ahead and put those regular lines through there. So I'll click both areas and click OK. So that's what I get, a thick border around the entire selected area, and then the thin lines in between each cell. Now at this point, things can get a little bit trickier beyond that. Let's go ahead. Let's say I wanted to put a dark border here to kind of separate the numbers from what are being from the results. So I want to separate the numbers that are being multiplied from the results. So I'm going to go ahead and select this strip, right click, go to Format Cells, and notice what the preview looks like now. I've got one row selected, so one row is all that's showing up. I've spanned multiple columns, so I've got 2 columns showing me what the result here is. I've got the border is very thick and dark, and that's what it's showing me here. And then the bottom and the middle of the cells has a thin line. So what I'm going to do is replace this thin line on the bottom with a thicker one. So I select it, and this time I'll just click this little button here to turn that on. Now, if you want to turn something off, you can click it again and it'll get rid of it. Okay, and you can do that inside as well. Okay, click to remove, and let's put that back to a thin one. All right, so what we're going to get when we're done with this is a thick border around the top portion, the numbers that we're multiplying, and thin lines in between. Okay, looks good. Now let's do the same thing going in this direction, except right click and go to Format Cells, except we want the right border now to be dark. So we'll click there. Good enough. And just one more thing, I'd like to get rid of this line. And actually, I might want to get rid of this line as well. But let's start with this one. Right click Format Cells. Let's go ahead and just click on that to remove it. And then we'll click here and format that cell as well. And select None and remove that. So lots of ways to do things inside of Excel. Just kind of depends on how you want to deal with it. Okay, so that's a good start. Let's go ahead in the next exercise and we'll add some coloring to this table.